Good afternoon. Welcome to the Louisiana Department of Education's presentation on the fiscal year 2024 National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance Grant. My name is Stacy Griffin, and I will be conducting this presentation. So, an overview. The Consolidated Appropriations Act 2024, which is Public Law 118-42, has provided $10 million to state agencies to competitively award equipment assistance grants to eligible school food authorities participating in the National School Lunch Program. Louisiana has been allocated $166,000 and 137. The equipment assistance grants will be especially effective in supporting SFAs by enabling them to meet equipment needs, which have continued to experience supply chain disruptions in operating school food service. The funding goals of the 2024 NSLP equipment grant is to improve the ability of SFAs to provide healthier meals, support scratch cooking, improve food safety, store fresh food, upgrade equipment, and help support the establishment, maintenance, or expansion of the school breakfast program. So, what is the definition of equipment? For the purpose of the 2024 equipment grant, equipment is defined in 2 CFR as tangible personal property having a useful life of more than 1 year and a per unit acquisition or purchase cost of $5,000 or more. Although Congress has specified that the threshold for the purchase of equipment cannot be lower than $1,000 for the 2024 NSLP equipment grant, the state agency strongly encourages SFAs to identify equipment that will make the greatest impact on school food service operations based on the goals described in the grant. Typically, such items have a cost greater than $5,000. So, eligible types of equipment. New equipment and replacement equipment will be eligible for awards. Each equipment award is limited to one piece of equipment per eligible site application. For example, more than one cafeteria table or mobile feeding car would not be reimbursable for a site award. So keep in mind that the awarded equipment must remain at the site specified on the 2024 NSLP equipment grant application. When thinking about equipment that you need, consider asking your school site staff about the equipment that would be the most beneficial and make the greatest impact to attract participation and improve production or service for that particular site. All SFAs participating in the National School Lunch Program are eligible to apply for any sites that have not received an equipment grant award in the past and have a demonstrated need where a greater percentage of enrolled students qualify for free or reduced price meals. When scoring grant applications for award, the state agency must give priority to SFAs with sites demonstrating the greatest need. Sites with higher free and reduced percentages will receive the greatest priority in scoring. Responses in accordance with the goals defined in the USDA memo will increase the likelihood of award. Sites which have received NSLP Equipment Grant Award funding in prior years are ineligible and would not be considered for the grant. Each SFA must confirm and demonstrate the ability to obligate grant funds within 6 months of the notification of the award. Initial award notification will be sent by email to the superintendent and authorized representative, exactly as listed in the CMP website. So please ensure that all contact information, including the email address and phone number for contacts on the CMP website, reflect your current and accurate information. Otherwise, you may not receive the award notification and correspondence required to meet the deadlines for payment of award funding. An important consideration when applying for the equipment grant is the financial ability of your system to obligate funds prior to reimbursement by the state agency. An invoice or purchase order must be obtained and provided along with the other submission requirements in the request for reimbursement prior to payment of grant funds. This process typically takes 3 weeks or more after the date of receipt by the state agency and will vary depending on the accuracy of the documentation submitted. In order to comply with the regulations and requirements outlined in the grant, please be aware that all procurement activities must be performed in accordance with 2 CFR and 7 CFR, and backup documentation kept on file at the SFA's CNP office. Grant funds must be obligated within 6 months of the award notification, evidenced by an official invoice or purchase order. SFAs must submit an accurate and complete request for reimbursement for each site, piece of equipment awarded by the obligation of funds deadline. Incorrect or incomplete submission of the request for reimbursement by the deadline will result in funds being awarded to the next highest scoring site in another SFA. So SFAs are subject to NSLP equipment grants audit. Audits will be held during regularly scheduled administrative reviews and may take place during announced or unannounced visits. Questions that may be asked will include: is the awarded equipment located at the physical site where it was awarded? Is procurement documentation maintained on file? And does it demonstrate a competitive procedure in compliance with USDA regulations? Were NSLP grant award reimbursement funds applied to reimburse the child nutrition program for the correct amount and within the fiscal year funds were provided? Please note that the state agency may impose fiscal action up to the total amount of grant funding provided if an SFA cannot demonstrate proof of compliance with federal equipment grant terms and regulations. So some important dates. The equipment grant application will open on October 14th, 2024, which is next week, and it will close on November 15th, 2024. Notification of awards will take place by December 9th, 2024. The award notification will include the amount of the grant and detailed instructions on how to request funding. SFAs must obligate funds by June 9th, 2025, and that is by submitting your purchase order or invoice and also submitting your request for reimbursement. Submission of the online 2024 equipment grant application must be completed by November 15th, 2024. No application or revisions will be accepted past the due date. So let's go over some directions on how to apply. In order to complete and submit online site applications for the equipment grant, start by logging into the CNP website. On the left side, you're going to see the green sidebar. Click on Equipment Grants, which will allow a drop down of grant applications by year. Next, click on the 2024 Application tab. When opening the application site, only eligible sites should appear in the new application screen. The green bar at the top illustrates that new applications are currently being accepted. You are allowed 3 requests for each site that appears. Request 1 should be the equipment of greatest need, because request one will be prioritized first for award purposes across SFAs and sites. You're going to then click on Create to open the Request One application. You will not be able to submit a Request Two application until Request One is successfully submitted. Note that if you start on an application and save it, but have not successfully submitted the application, the corresponding site's Request One will indicate open, saved, not submitted, as listed here for the ZZZ Elementary School. After clicking Create, the online application will pop up. Hover your cursor over the red question mark next to each question for instructions on completing that section. Remember to click the Save button as you work through the application so that you do not lose any work completed. Clicking the Save button will serve to alert you to errors or incomplete information in the application, and it will save the information entered as you go through the application form. So these are some online application questions. Questions 1, 3, and 5, including the sponsor name, site name, and application request number, will automatically populate into the online application. Questions 6, 7, and 8 will also automatically populate. These numbers include enrollment, the percentage free and reduced eligible students or site level ISP X 1.6, as well as the school's average daily lunch participation. While those questions autofill, questions 2 and 4 must be answered. These questions are related to whether or not your SFA has received an equipment grant in the past or if this site received an equipment grant in the past. If your SFA received a grant in the past, but the site has not received an equipment grant in the past, that site is still eligible for the award. The question regarding whether your SFA received a grant in the past helps with tie break scoring. Preference will be given to those SFAs that have not received a grant in the past if more than one SFA site application is scored the same as a result of the applications. Question 9 is the name of the equipment item you would like to purchase for award. Please, when you're doing question 9, please make sure that you do not specify a brand. Just put the type of equipment that you would like to purchase. Question 10 is the name of the equipment that will be replaced, the age of the equipment to be replaced, and inventory tag number. If applicable, question 11 is the cost of the equipment item to be purchased. Please fill in answers for these three questions and remember that if you receive an award for this site for this piece of equipment, you cannot change your mind and request a different piece of equipment in place of what you planned and entered into this application. Think ahead and talk to site managers before determining the optimal piece of equipment by site that you would like to apply for. Question 12 asks what dollar amount is requested from this federal equipment assistance grant to purchase the equipment item. $15,000 is the maximum amount to be awarded. Question 13 asks what the current fund balance is in the school food service account. Question 14 request the percentage of matching funds that are going to be expended by the school or school system for the equipment request for award. For example, if general funds will support 50% of the cost of the equipment requested and C&P funds will cover the other 50%, you would click on 40 to 59%. Question 15 allows you to choose the focus area for the purchase of equipment. You may choose one focus area, several, or choose all. Question 16 requests a description of the intended use of the equipment to be purchased, including how each focus area will be supported by the purchase of the equipment requested. Question 17 asks how quickly the school system expects to be able to expend the funds, which should be 6 months or less for the purpose of this grant. When deciding on the equipment to purchase, please consider your timeline if purchasing this equipment requires school board approval or if it is part of a larger project that will take considerable time or the amount of time is unknown. The goal is to complete procurement procedures and to be able to provide a purchase order or invoice for the equipment to the state agency within 6 months or less. So remember to consider the scope of the project when determining what equipment to purchase to fulfill the focus of this grant. Under the application is a certification statement. Please read the certification carefully and ensure that all application questions reflect accurate information prior to clicking the submit button on the bottom. After submission, the application is closed and no edits may be performed on that application. When submitting the online application, please note that each site application must be submitted individually. Also, an application will not successfully submit if there are identified errors. To check on the status of an application request, click Back to List at the top of the online application form. A status of open, saved, not submitted will appear under the request number 1 column if the corresponding site application information entered was saved, but the application has not been successfully submitted to the state. In this example, request number 1 shows a message of open, submitted. This indicates that the award application period is still open and that the corresponding site application has been successfully submitted. Now that the request number 1 application for that site has been submitted, the request number 2 application is now available to create and submit. Continue the process for a request number 3 application. After December 9th, 2024, the online application process is closed and normal applications will be accepted after that date. A red bar at the top of the online application will show that the application submission is closed. So let's talk about requesting reimbursement. SFAs who are awarded grant funding will receive an email with instructions on how to request reimbursement. The request for reimbursement requires an online request for funding and a submission of a purchase order or invoice for each awarded site or piece of equipment. Please check your online authorized representative contact information to ensure an accurate email address is listed. For the online request for reimbursement, follow these steps. Step 1. Access the awarded site application initially submitted. Step 2. Under the award amount listed at the top of the page, click on the green Request Funding tab. For step 3, the following box will pop up. Input the actual cost of the equipment purchased as it appears on the purchase order or invoice submitted by email to myself, stacy.griffin@la.gov. Note that the awarded amount automatically populates into the appropriate box. For step 4, after entering the actual price of the equipment, which in this example is $5,400, click the Request button. Next, click the Close button. For step 5, after clicking Request, a heading like the one below will appear. The lesser amount will autofill as the eligible amount, whether it be the actual cost of the equipment entered from the invoice or purchase order or the award amount. Pending a review for accuracy, eligible reimbursement amount, which in this scenario is $5,400, will be paid to the ZZZ sponsor's CMP account as reimbursement. Payment is made by appropriation control after state agency review and approval of the full request for reimbursement packet submission. Payment must be applied to the school food service account and is transmitted by EFT or check. CMP directors should notify the business office to expect a check or EFT in the amount of reimbursement listed to post to the SFS account. CMP directors should monitor the SFS account for a deposit and ensure that a note is made to designate the funds as 2024 NSLP Equipment Grant Award funding. To expedite the reimbursement process, please email the purchase order or invoice for each piece of equipment awarded by site to stacy.griffin@la.gov. And then you're going to complete the online request for funding as soon as funds are obligated. Call or email myself for questions if you are uncertain if your documents were received or if reimbursement was approved. Some important notes to remember are to please do not begin procurement activities or purchase equipment prior to receiving a notification of award. SFAs must obligate award funds within 6 months of award notification, and a purchase order or invoice is required as proof of obligating funds to apply for reimbursement. The following notes must appear in financial documentation related to expenditures and reimbursement for the 2024 NSLP equipment grants, including the CFDA number, which is 10.579. The equipment grant is separate from the child nutrition program in terms of allowable expenditures and other program requirements. Therefore, funds related to the equipment grant are not reported in the annual CMP application under the income and expense form. Maintain all equipment grant documentation on file for 3 years plus the current year. Equipment grant awards are subject to audit, which is discussed on the next slide. Procurement, expenditure, reimbursement, and related account documentation is subject to financial audit. The administrative review of child nutrition programs includes an audit of documentation related to the grant award and physical confirmation of the location and type of equipment awarded based on the site award list by year. Independent financial audit and/or CMP administrative review audit for equipment grants may include current year and/or prior year awards. Some additional information will be located under Memos and Resources on the CMP website under the School Food Service Forms section under the heading 2024 NSLP Equipment Assistance Grants. As always, if you have any questions, please contact myself, Stacy Griffin, at 225-342-3677, or you can send an email to stacy.griffin@la.gov. Remember, applications will open on next Monday, October 14th, 2024. So you just go check on the CMP website under equipment grants for 2024 to see which sites you have that will be available to submit an application for. If you have any questions, you can put those in the chat right now. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. So if you think of something at a later time, please send me an email or give me a call. And thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.